My name is Judith Ashbrook. I am 67 years old and have been a widow for 10 years. Sitting in my large home in North Minneapolis, I often feel my rooms are filled with memories, not just things. Many memories are happy, some are sad, but lately, I've been thinking that in trying to be successful, I might have missed what was most important. I worked as a heart doctor at the Mayo Clinic for 35 years. I remember starting out as a young doctor full of energy and dreams. Back then, there were very few women heart doctors. I had to work extra hard to prove myself to the men I worked with. Over time, I became known as one of the best in my field, but it came at a cost. I met Erwin when we were both in school. He was studying law, and I was studying medicine. We got married in our third year, and a year into my training, our first child, Gar, was born. 2 years later, Mariel arrived. By then, Erwin was already building a successful career as a corporate lawyer representing big drug companies. Our children were mostly raised by a nanny, Rosita, who was with us for 15 years. I was often away at conferences and Erwin was busy with meetings that lasted for days. We always told ourselves we were doing it for the children, giving them a good future. That's what Erwin would say when I was tired after working 12 hours, and felt guilty that the kids were asleep when I got home. He called me Dee, shortening my name. Just like my time with our children was often cut short, I clearly remember the morning Gar was supposed to play the main part in his school play. He was 9 years old. I had promised to be there, but a patient was admitted to the hospital with a bad heart attack, and I stayed to help. When I got home that evening, Gard didn't speak to me for 3 days. I bought him a new bicycle, a fancy one with many gears. He took it without much excitement, but at least he stopped ignoring me. Every time I was away, every time I missed something important in my children's lives, I tried to make up for it with gifts. For Mariel's birthday, I often didn't have time to even buy a cake, but I always ordered something impressive, a doll, a trip to Disneyland, or gold earrings for her 16th birthday. As the years went by, this became more common. When Gar and Mariel went to college, Erwin and I paid for them to go to good schools, bought them apartments, and gave them cars. We told ourselves we were giving them what we didn't have. I grew up in a family with a school teacher and a bus driver. Erwin was raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs. Looking back, I realized we gave our children everything except ourselves. Our time, our attention, our love were carefully measured and wrapped up with bright ribbons. We thought we were building their future, but we missed out on their present. When Erwin died of a heart problem 10 years ago, I was 57. He died so suddenly that I didn't even get to say goodbye. He collapsed in the courtroom during a trial. It's ironic that I, a heart doctor with 30 years of experience, couldn't save my own husband from a heart attack. After the funeral, the kids stayed with me for a week and then went back to their lives. Gar went to Chicago, where he worked as a manager for a drug company, and Mariel went to a suburb of Minneapolis, where she taught elementary school. Both were already married. Gar to Tessa, a former model who wanted to be a socialite, and Mariel to Noel, a quiet accountant who always seemed to be in his wife's shadow. I kept working for another 5 years after Erwin's death, and then I retired. It was only then, alone in a big, empty house, that I started to see the truth about my relationship with my children. Our house, a 3-story Victorian mansion built in the early 1900s, had always been more of a way to show off our success than a real family home. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a study, a library, a sunroom. It all seems too much and cold now. Sometimes I walk through the rooms, opening doors as if I expect to see ghosts from my past. After retiring, I realized I didn't know what to do with my time. My whole life had been about work, and now that it was gone, there was nothing. I tried to keep busy by volunteering at the hospital, reading books, and gardening, but nothing gave me the same feeling as saving people's lives. I hoped I could spend more time with my children and grandchildren. Gar has 2 teenage sons, Ethan and Jason, and Mariel has a daughter, Lillian, who is now 11. I imagine taking them to museums, helping them with their homework, baking cookies. Together, all the things I didn't get to do with my own kids. But it didn't work out that way. Visits from my children and grandchildren were rare and carefully planned, like business meetings. They usually came on weekends 2 or 3 times a year, often before holidays or important family events. Gradually, I began to notice a pattern. In these visits, they always started with friendly greetings, asking about my health, and telling me about my grandchildren's achievements. Then, as if it were a script, the conversation would turn to money. Mom, Ethan needs a new laptop for school. The cheapest one costs $1,000, Gar would say casually. Mommy, Noel, and I are thinking about getting a new car. You know how important it is to have a reliable car when you're driving your kid to all those activities, Mariel would add. When Erwin died, I inherited not only our house but also a lot of savings and his share of the law firm he started with his partners. No one knew exactly how much money I had, not even me without checking my bank statements. I never refused to help my children financially, partly because I felt guilty for not spending enough time with them, and partly because I was used to solving problems with money. And they got used to it, seeing my bank account as a family resource. You're not going to spend that money anyway, Mom, and we really need it now, was something I heard from Gar so often it became almost a routine. I noticed how my children acted differently in public and in private. In public, at a restaurant or family gatherings, they were perfectly respectful. My mother is a famous heart doctor, Gar would proudly tell his friends. Mom has saved so many lives. I've always looked up to her, Mariel would say. But at home, when they thought I couldn't hear, their tone changed. One day, I overheard Gar and Tessa talking in the kitchen when they came for Christmas 3 years ago. Is your mother going to lecture us about healthy eating again?
Tessa asked, annoyed. Just smile and nod, Gar replied.
The sooner we get through this dinner, the sooner we'll get the check for the boys' private school. I pretended I hadn't heard them, telling myself I was misunderstanding their words. They couldn't really see me as just a source of money, could they? But it happened again. I saw Mariel roll her eyes when I started talking about my volunteer projects. I saw Tessa quickly wipe her hands after hugging me. I heard Noel whisper to his wife, "How much longer do we have to sit here?" My birthday last year was especially telling. I had been expecting calls since morning, but the phone didn't ring. By late afternoon, I had accepted that everyone had forgotten. Then the doorbell rang. Gar and Mariel were standing on the doorstep with their spouses and kids, holding a cake and presents. "Surprise, Mom!" they exclaimed happily. I was touched. We drank tea, ate cake, and they gave me a beautiful scarf and a book about the history of medicine. Then, when everyone was feeling good, Gar casually mentioned, "By the way, Mom, Tessa and I are thinking about buying a new car. Could you help with the down payment?" At that moment, I realized the whole surprise had been planned carefully with one goal, to make me feel like I couldn't refuse to help them financially, and I didn't. I wrote a check for $20,000, which Gar accepted as if it were expected. Now, sitting in my empty house, I often wonder when our relationship changed so much. When did my children stop seeing me as a person and start seeing me as an ATM with a grandmother function? And was it my fault for teaching them to value money over love? Sometimes I wish I could start over, spending more time with my kids when they were little, listening to their stories, helping with their homework, just being there for them. But time can't be turned back. All I can do is accept things as they are and maybe try to change what can still be changed. Yesterday, I made a discovery that I wish I hadn't. It was Tuesday, the day Gar usually calls to see how I'm doing. These weekly calls started about a year ago when, at a family dinner, Mariel said she was worried about me being all alone in such a big house. The kids had a little meeting right there at the table, deciding how best to take care of Mom. The result was a call schedule. Gar on Tuesdays, Mariel on Fridays. I appreciated the thought, even though I knew it was just something they felt they had to do. The calls rarely lasted more than 10 minutes and followed the same pattern. "How are you, Mom? Is everything okay? Do you need help around the house?" After the greetings, the conversation would usually turn to their problems and end with another request for money. This Tuesday, the phone didn't ring. By late afternoon, I started to worry. Was something wrong? I called Gar myself, but he didn't answer. I decided to call Tessa. Her phone was off too, which was strange since she was always on her phone. At 9 p.m., just as I was about to go to bed, the doorbell rang. Gar and Tessa were standing on the doorstep. "Mom, sorry for the surprise visit," Gar said, looking worried. "We were driving by and thought we'd stop in." Driving by sounded odd, since they live in Chicago, a 6-hour drive from Minneapolis. But I was happy to see my son, so I didn't ask any questions. While I made tea, Gar wandered around the living room, looking at the pictures on the walls as if he were seeing them for the first time. Tessa sat on the couch, busy with her phone. "How are the kids?" I asked, putting out the cups. "Great," Gar answered a little too quickly. "Ethan got a top grade in chemistry, and Jason ... Well, you know Jason, the usual." I didn't ask what the usual meant. I'd seen my grandchildren so rarely lately that I barely recognized them in family photos. "Are you in town for long?" I asked. Gar and Tessa exchanged a quick look. "Actually, Mom, we're here on business," Gar began. "Tessa got a job offer here in Minneapolis at a PR agency." "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy even though Tessa had never worked in PR and hadn't worked at all since marrying Gar 15 years ago. The thought of having my son and his family living closer warmed my heart. "Yes, it's a great opportunity," Tessa added, looking up from her phone for the first time that evening. "But there's one problem: housing. The real estate market is crazy right now." "You can stay here while you look for a place," I offered without thinking. "That's very kind of you, Mom," Gar said, sitting down next to me. "But we've been thinking about something else. This house is too big for you to live in alone. The upkeep, the cleaning, the repairs, it all takes so much effort and money. Maybe you should consider something smaller." I didn't immediately understand what he was suggesting. "Are you saying I should move?" "Not move, but upgrade," Tessa said with a perfect smile that didn't reach her eyes. "There are beautiful retirement communities for active seniors with medical care, pools, and activities. You wouldn't feel so alone. And what would happen to this house?" I asked, trying to stay calm even though I was starting to get angry. "It could be sold," Gar said, as if he were talking about an old sweater, not the house where he and his sister grew up. "It's a great time to sell, and the money could be invested." "Invested in my new place first, of course," he added. "But maybe some of it could be used for other things. The boys' education, for example, or buying a bigger house for you if you move to Minneapolis," I finished for him. "Mom, you're misunderstanding us," Gar said, sounding offended. "We're only thinking of what's best for you." The conversation went on for another hour. They showed me brochures with pictures of retirement communities, told me about the benefits of senior living, and promised that this would be a new chapter in my life. When they left, promising to come back in a week with more information, I sat in silence. For a long time, trying to sort out my feelings. The house they were so willing to sell was a part of our family history. It was where Erwin and I had spent almost our entire married life. It was where our children were born. Our memories, both good and bad, were stored here. The next day, I decided to call Mariel to see if she knew about her brother's plans. Noel answered the phone, saying that Mariel was at school but would be home soon. "By the way, Judith," he added awkwardly, "Gar called last night and mentioned talking to you about some possible changes." "Yes, it's just a suggestion," I said. "No one's going to force me if I don't want to." Something in his voice, too calm and cautious, made me suspicious. "Noel, do you and Mariel think I should move too?" There was a long pause. "Mariel thinks you'd be better off in a place where you can be taken care of, where there are people your age and common interests." "I'm 67, Noel, not 97. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." "Of course, Judith, of course," he said in that careful tone. "It's just that we're all worried. Such a big house. So many worries." After this conversation, worry turned into suspicion. Why were they suddenly so concerned about my well-being? I decided to test my theory. I called Gar and told him I had been thinking about his offer and might be willing to consider it, But I wanted him and Mariel to come over for the weekend to talk about it as a family. Gar agreed so quickly that it only made me more suspicious. On Saturday, they all drove down together. Gar and Tessa from Chicago, Mariel and Noel from the suburbs. They didn't bring the kids, saying there was a school event. I made lunch like in the old days, roast beef, mashed potatoes, steamed vegetables, Irwin's favorites. Over lunch, the conversation was casual about work, the kids, and summer plans. No one mentioned me moving. It was like the topic was off limits, at least until dessert. After lunch, I said I wanted to rest and would go lie down for a half hour. I actually needed time to think before the upcoming conversation. As I went upstairs, I heard them go into the living room. Their voices carried through the old house's air vents. She took the bait, Gar's voice said. I told you she'd say yes. Don't jump to conclusions, Mariel replied. She hasn't signed anything yet, and she's not stupid, Gar. She understands if we push too hard. No one's going to push, Tessa said. We just need to get the details right. She's lonely. She needs company. There are too many memories in this house. A new place is a new life. It's for her own good. For her own good. Noel laughed. Let's call things what they are. We want to sell the house while she's still able to sign the papers and split the money? No, Mariel sounded upset. What? It's true. We've been going around in circles for 6 months. Gar wants to start his own business and needs money, and you want to send Lillian to private school. Neither of us can afford it without Mom's money. It's not just her money, Gar said quietly but firmly. Dad earned it for the family, for all of us. She's just the caretaker, and she's holding on too tight. Tessa added, begging every time like it's charity. It's humiliating. She gives US money when we ask for it, Mariel said. At the drop of a hat. Tessa scoffed. I listened, frozen, unable to believe what I was hearing. They were discussing my life as if I were already dead or unable to make decisions. What if she doesn't agree? Noel asked. She will, Gar replied confidently. I've already spoken to a lawyer. If needed, we can start proceedings to have her declared partially incapacitated. She forgets things, mixes up dates. It's normal at her age. Mariel protested. It might be enough for the court to appoint a guardian, especially if a doctor confirms the beginning signs of dementia. What doctor? Mariel asked, not believing him. Dr. Rodriguez, an old friend of mine.
He's already agreed to help if needed. That's wrong, Gar, Mariel said, sounding unsure.
She's our mother, who's been too busy with her career all her life to notice us, Gar replied sharply. Who bought us off with gifts instead of spending time together. Have you forgotten how many times she missed your school concerts and my sports events? She chose her job over us, Mariel. Now it's our turn to make the choice. Silence followed. Then Mariel sighed. Okay, but let's try the easy way first. She's always wanted the best for us. Maybe if you explain how important it is to us. Already tried that, Tessa interrupted. Gar's been hinting for months that he needs money for his business. She keeps saying she'd think about it. No more waiting. We need to act now while she's still alive, Noel finished. Before the situation gets more complicated, Tessa corrected. Look, the plan is simple. Today we convince her that moving is the best solution. We find a suitable community, not the cheapest, but not the most expensive either. Gar has already found a buyer for the house. A colleague has been looking at houses in the area for a while. The price is fair. After selling the house and paying for the new place, there will be money left over. We'll split it equally, some for you, some for us. What about her bank accounts? Noel asked. One step at a time, Gar replied. The house first. Then, once she's used to the new place, we'll talk about managing her finances more wisely. Maybe set up a family trust or something? She never agreed to give up control of her money, Mariel said. If necessary, we'll revisit the guardianship option, Gar said coldly. But I hope it doesn't come to that. She's a reasonable woman. We'll make her see it's best for everyone. I listened to this conversation feeling like my world was falling apart. My own children were planning to take my home, my money, and maybe even my freedom to make decisions, all while pretending to care about me. Tears ran down my face, but I didn't make a sound. I didn't want them to know I had heard everything. I needed time to think. Wiping my tears, I went to the mirror, fixed my makeup, and walked back downstairs with a smile, the fakest smile of my life. So, my children, I said, walking into the living room, shall we talk about the future?
They
Turned to me with guilty smiles, unaware that I could see their true faces. The game had begun, but now I knew the rules. For the next 2 hours, I listened to their arguments, looked at the brochures, and asked questions, all the while watching them with new eyes. The way Tessa wrinkled her nose when I touched her arm, the way Noah rolled his eyes when I talked. About my gardening plans, the way Gar and Mariel exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking, those details had always been there. But I had ignored them. Now I saw them so clearly that I was amazed by my earlier blindness. I need time to think, I said at the end of the conversation. This is a big decision. Of course, Mom, Gar said, patting my arm. We understand, but don't take too long. A good offer might not last. When they left, promising to come back in 2 weeks, I stood at the window, looking out at the empty driveway. Gar's words echoed in my head. She chose her job over us. Now it's our turn to make the choice. Maybe he was right. I did choose my career when they were kids. But did that make what they were planning okay? That night, I couldn't sleep. Lying in bed, I thought about how things had gotten to this point. Where had I gone wrong in raising them? What could I have done differently? And, most importantly, what should I do now? By morning, I had made a decision. If my children had declared war on me, even secretly, I wasn't going to give up without a fight. After all, I've always been a fighter. Otherwise, I wouldn't have become one of the first female heart doctors in the country. I wouldn't have built a successful career. I wouldn't have made the money that my children were now so interested in. For the first time in years, I felt a surge of energy and determination. I opened my closet and pulled out an old notebook where I kept contact information for former colleagues and patients. I needed allies in the battle ahead, and I knew who to start with. It had been a week since that memorable weekend when I'd overheard my kids' plans. I decided to be cautious, not letting on that I knew. I pretended to think about moving, asked them to send me more information about retirement communities, and even found some ads myself and sent them to Gar with questions. All the while, I watched them carefully, noticing every fake note in their voices, every insincere smile. Where before I had dismissed their behavior as tiredness or everyday worries, now I saw the truth. On Wednesday, Mariel called to invite me to lunch over the weekend. Just a family dinner, Mom. Nothing special. Noel will cook his famous steak. I agreed, even though I suspected it was another attempt to pressure me into selling the house. Mariel never invited me just for fun. There was always some reason or hidden agenda. On Saturday, I arrived at their house in the suburbs of Minneapolis. It was a typical upper-middle-class house, 2 stories with a neat lawn and fancy garden decorations. Nothing too flashy, but nice enough to impress the neighbors. Mariel met me at the door. Mom, it's so good to see you. You look great. I smiled, noticing how rehearsed her words sounded. Compliments like this used to make me happy, but now I could hear the fake enthusiasm in them. Gar and Tessa were already inside. It seemed they had been invited too, which made me even more suspicious. A family meeting, no less. Grandma Lillian, Mariel's daughter, the only one whose happiness I trusted, ran to hug me. She's 11, and unlike her cousins, Gar's sons, she's always been close to me. Hi, sunshine, I said, hugging my granddaughter, breathing in the fruity scent of her hair. I got an A in biology, and the teacher said I have a talent for science. Just like you, she said proudly. Good for you, I said, pulling a small box out of my bag. This is for you, just because. Lillian opened the box and gasped. Inside were silver earrings. They're beautiful. Thank you, Grandma. Mom, you're spoiling her, Mariel said, but I heard jealousy in her voice, not concern for her daughter. Always that tone, as if every gift to her granddaughter was a criticism of her. Lunch was tense, with everyone trying to act normal. They talked about the weather, Lillian's school achievements, and Gar's new work project. No one mentioned the house or moving, but I sensed that was the main topic saved for dessert. After lunch, Noel suggested that Lillian and I play chess while the others cleaned up. This was unusual. Noel rarely took the lead in talking to me. Suspecting it was a distraction, I agreed. Lillian loved chess, and I didn't want to disappoint her. We went into the living room while Gar, Tessa, and Mariel went into the kitchen. The door was closed, but not completely. Apparently, they thought the sound of running water and dishes would cover their conversation. But they hadn't considered the house's good acoustics and my still sharp hearing, a result of years of listening to heartbeats through a stethoscope. So, when do we tell her? Gar's voice said. After Lillian goes to do her homework, Mariel replied. Do you think she agree? Tessa sounded doubtful. She should, Gar said confidently. Jeff already has all the paperwork ready. He just needs her signature. Jeff? Who's Jeff? I moved a pawn, trying not to show that I was listening to their conversation. What if she says no? I could hear the worry in Mariel's voice. Then we go to plan B, Gar said quietly. Jeff says that with Dr. Rodriguez's report and our evidence of her forgetfulness, the court can appoint a temporary guardian. It could be me or you as the next of kin. That's too much, Gar, Mariel said, sounding unsure. It's one thing to convince her to sell the house, and another to make her lose her rights. No one's talking about total loss of rights, Gar sighed, sounding annoyed. Financial guardianship only. She'd be able to make all other decisions, except for deciding how to handle her money. Exactly, Tessa said. Gar continued. Look, Mariel, we've talked about this before. Her accounts are just sitting there. She's only using the interest. The main amount remains untouched. It's a waste. It's her money, Mariel objected. She and Dad earned it. They always said they were working for our future. Gar raised his voice slightly. Well, the future is here. I want to open my own clinic. You want Lillian to go to a better school. What's wrong with that? Nothing, but but. No buts, Gar interrupted. Are you with me or not? If not, I'll do it all myself, but then don't expect a share. There was silence. Then Mariel sighed. I'm with you, but let's try to do it the easy way first. Maybe she agree. Sure, Gar said, sounding calmer. We'll offer her a win-win solution. She sells the house, moves into a retirement community, and the money left over and some of her savings goes into a trust managed by me. And if she asks why you and not herself? Tessa said. Let's say it's safer, that it's easy for someone her age to be scammed, that it's for her own protection, Gar said confidently, as if he had practiced this speech many times. Your move, Grandma. Lillian's voice brought me back to reality. I stared at the chessboard, unable to see the pieces. My son's words, Dr. Rodriguez's report, loss of rights, rang in my head. Grandma, are you okay? Lillian looked at me worriedly. I forced myself to smile. Of course I am, sunshine. Just thinking about my next move. I continued to listen to the conversation in the kitchen, but they had moved on to talking about Lillian's school event. Apparently, the most important things had already been said. After a game of chess, which I deliberately lost to please my granddaughter, we went back to the table for tea. Lillian was soon sent to do her homework, and the moment I had been waiting for arrived. Mom, Gar began, we wanted to talk to you about something. We already talked about it last week, about selling your house. I decided to be direct. Yes. Gar looked slightly surprised at my directness. We found a great option for you, Golden Autumn Retirement Community. Not too expensive, but with good medical care and all the amenities. He placed a brochure in front of me. On the cover, smiling seniors played golf against a backdrop of green grass. And the other day, I got a call from my colleague, Adam Brenton. Gar continued, remember I told you about him? He's been looking for a house in your neighborhood for a while, and he was very interested when he heard you might be selling. He's willing to pay a good price. What kind of price? I asked, trying to sound interested. Gar named a number that was well below the market value of the house. I pretended to think about it. And what do you want to do with the money from the sale? I asked. Gar and Mariel looked at each other. Well, we were thinking about setting up a family trust, Gar said. For better management of the money. I could help with that. I have some experience in investments. Really? I said, acting surprised. I didn't know you were interested in investments. I have a few successful investments, Gar said confidently, but I noticed Tessa slightly frown. The important thing is that this way your money will be protected and will help the whole family, including Gar's clinic and Lillian's private school. I couldn't stop myself from asking. They tensed up. Mariel looked pale, and Gar frowned. Did you hear our conversation? He asked. Enough to know what you're planning, about the trust and Dr. Rodriguez and the possibility of me losing my rights. Mom, Mariel put her hand on mine. We're just worried about you. You're becoming more vulnerable. I pulled my hand away. I'm perfectly healthy, Mariel, and perfectly capable of making decisions, no matter what Dr. Rodriguez says, who I've never even met, by the way. That's not true, Gar said, trying to regain control. You're forgetting things, mixing up dates. Remember last month when you forgot Ethan's birthday? I didn't forget, Gar, I said. I sent him a present ahead of time with a messenger. He told me himself on the phone. Or did you keep my gift from him? Gar blushed. That's not the point. The point is that you need help, and you're too stubborn to admit it. Help managing my money? I said, laughing bitterly. Or in handing it over to you. You're being unfair, Mom, Mariel said. We're thinking of what's best for you, for my good. You consult a lawyer about how to make me lose my rights, and you're talking about my good? You plan to sell my house to your colleague at a low price and tell me you care about me. I did not say, Gar exclaimed. Then explain to me what Plan B and Dr. Rodriguez mean. Silence followed. Gar and Mariel looked caught, and Tessa stared at her cup. Noel, who had been quiet all this time, just looked sad. I'm disappointed, I finally said. Not that you need money. Everyone has financial troubles. It's that instead of talking to me honestly, you came up with this plot. It's not a conspiracy, Mariel said, but her voice sounded weak. Then what is it? Caring? Love? I said. You know what the saddest thing is? I would have helped you if you had just asked, without all the lies. You wouldn't have helped, Gar said suddenly. Not in the amounts we need. You always controlled every dollar you gave us, always made us feel like we owed you. You always made us feel like we needed to do something in exchange because money was the only thing I could get you. I felt tears coming to my eyes. I wasn't a perfect mother, Gar. I missed too many important moments because of work. But I've always loved you and wanted what's best for you. Then prove it, Gar said, looking me in the eye. Help us now. Sign the papers to sell the house, set up the trust, do what a loving mother would do. I looked at him, my firstborn, and saw not a grown man but a little boy who had once run to me with a scraped knee. How had we come to this? When did he become so greedy? I need to think about it, I finally said. This is a big decision. What is there to think about? Tessa asked. You sell the house and everyone wins? If it's so simple, why didn't you tell me that directly? Why the plots and plans to make me lose my rights? It's a last resort, Gar said. Just in case you won't act reasonably. Reasonably? You think it's reasonable to want control of my money? To do financial crimes to get it? Not to us, but to the family, Gar replied, correcting me. The money will still be yours. We'll just manage it better. I looked at them, my children and their partners. Did they really believe what they were saying, or were they just using it as a convenient excuse? I should go home, I said, standing up. Thanks for lunch. Wait, Mariel said. We're not done talking. We are done for today, I said. I'll let you know what I decide. As I left, I went to say goodbye to Lillian. She was doing her homework and looked up at me. Are you leaving already, Grandma? Yes, sunshine. I still have things to do.
You look sad, she said. Is something wrong? I smiled.
Children often notice things adults ignore. Just tired, but I'm fine. Come again, she hugged me. I love it when you come. I will, I said, kissing her head. The drive home passed in a blur. I was driving on autopilot, with bits of the conversation going through my head. Plan D, Dr. Rodriguez. Custody. My own children were planning to take away my right to handle their money. At home. I went straight to the computer. There was no time to think. I had to act. I started by searching for information about financial guardianship and the rights of elderly people. Then I called my old friend Eleanor Parker, who worked with elderly rights. Nora, I need your help, I said when she answered. Judith, what's wrong? Eleanor was one of the few people who called me by my nickname, D. I told her everything about the kids' plans, the conversations I had overheard, the house and the trust. Those evil people, Eleanor said, never afraid to say what she thought. I'm so sorry, Dee, but it's true. How can they do this to you? I'm partly to blame. I've always solved their problems with money. They are used to seeing me as an asset, not a person. That doesn't make their actions okay, Eleanor said. What are you going to do? I don't know, I said. I'm putting it off for now. I said I'd think about selling the house. That's not good enough, Eleanor said firmly. If they're serious, they can act quickly, especially if they have a doctor willing to say you have dementia. What do you suggest? For starters, you need to get a full medical checkup with a doctor you trust. Get a report saying you are mentally competent. That will be your way of protecting yourself in case they take you to court. I agreed. Eleanor was right. Proof of my capacity was necessary. And another thing, she added, you need to find out more about what they are planning. Gar's contacts with that lawyer, the buyer of your house, and your children's financial situation. They might be in more trouble than you know. How do I find out? I asked. Hire a private investigator, Eleanor said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I have a contact, someone trustworthy who's helped a few of my clients in similar situations. His name is Alan Cho, discreet, smart, and knows how to follow the money. She paused. D, if your kids are planning to strip you of your rights and assets, you need to be 5 steps ahead. This is no longer just a family disagreement. It's financial warfare. I was silent for a moment, gripping the phone. The idea of hiring a private investigator to look into my own children made my stomach turn, but so did the thought of being manipulated into losing everything I'd built. Give me his number, I said.